Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat in silence, no distractions, no noise, just you and your thoughts? For most of us, it's been far too long. You see, we live in a world that glorifies connection but undervalues solitude. But tonight, I want to shine a light on the beauty, the power of living alone. Loving yourself is not just a phrase, it's a practice, a journey, and sometimes a battle. Before you can expect love from others, you must first learn to truly embrace yourself. This doesn't mean glossing over your flaws or pretending you're perfect. No, it means standing in front of the mirror, seeing every scar, every imperfection, and saying, I am enough. It means recognizing your worth independent of anyone else's validation and cultivating a relationship with yourself that is as deep and fulfilling as any you could have with another person. Too often we search for love in others to fill a void we haven't addressed within ourselves. We crave validation, thinking someone else's affection will make us whole. But the truth is, if you don't love yourself, no amount of external love will ever feel like enough. You'll constantly question it, doubt it, or even push it away. Learning to love yourself first means that when someone else loves you, it's not because you need them to, it's because you want to share your already full cup with theirs. Living alone gives you the perfect opportunity to embark on this journey. It's in the quiet moments when no one else is around that you truly get to meet yourself. You start to understand your likes and dislikes, your strengths and weaknesses, and what truly makes you happy. You don't have to answer to anyone else's expectations or needs. It's just you, raw and unfiltered. And that's where the magic begins. When you spend time alone, you start to discover the things you enjoy without anyone else's influence. Maybe it's a new hobby, a book you can't put down, or even the simple pleasure of a quiet morning coffee. These moments, though small, build the foundation of self-love. You're no longer seeking approval for your choices or molding yourself to fit someone else's idea of who you should be. Instead, you're living authentically for you. Self-love also means confronting the parts of yourself that you'd rather ignore. It's about taking responsibility for your mistakes and forgiving yourself for them. It's about recognizing your insecurities and working to heal them, not masking them with the attention of someone else. This work is hard, but it's also liberating. It's the kind of growth that no relationship can provide because it comes from within. As you learn to love yourself, you also learn to set boundaries. You stop tolerating behaviors or situations that diminish your worth. You become more selective about who you let into your life, not out of arrogance, but out of a deep understanding of your value. And when you do choose to let someone in, it's from a place of abundance, not lack. Living alone doesn't mean you're lonely. It means you've chosen to prioritize the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one with yourself. Because when you truly love who you are, you don't need anyone to complete you. You're already whole. And that, my friends, is the most powerful kind of love there is. Freedom of choice is one of the most empowering aspects of living alone. It means that every decision you make is yours to own. Every path you walk is one you've chosen. And every success or failure you encounter is rooted in your autonomy. There's a unique beauty in knowing that your life is truly yours to shape without the need to compromise or seek permission from others. This is where the essence of self-directed living shines, when you are the sole navigator of your destiny. When you live alone, the power to choose extends to even the smallest details of your day-to-day life. You decide what time you wake up, what meals you cook, and how you spend your evenings. Want to stay up late binge watching a favorite show? Go ahead. Feel like spending an entire weekend reading or exploring a new passion? Nothing stands in your way. These seemingly minor choices build a life that feels authentically yours, a life that reflects your preferences, desires, and rhythm. This kind of freedom fosters not only independence, but also self-awareness as you begin to understand what truly makes you happy. But it's not just about the small decisions. Living alone allows you to take full control of the bigger choices, the ones that shape the course of your life. You can pursue a career path you're passionate about without worrying about how it might affect a partner. You can move to a new city, try a new lifestyle, or take risks that others might hesitate to support. This freedom lets you embrace opportunities on your terms without feeling tethered to someone else's expectations or plans. With every decision you make, you also gain something invaluable: accountability. When you live alone, you can't deflect blame onto someone else for your missteps. If you make a mistake, it's yours to own, and that's a good thing. It's in taking responsibility for your choices that you grow stronger, more resilient, and more confident. There's no safety net of shared blame, but there's also no limitation on the credit you can give yourself for the achievements you earn. The victories feel sweeter because they're entirely your own. Freedom of choice also means you get to explore who you are without external influences. In relationships, even the healthiest ones, there's often a degree of compromise that shapes your decisions. But when you're living alone, you don't have to negotiate your dreams or suppress your individuality. You can experiment, take unconventional paths, and follow your intuition without the need to justify your decisions to anyone else. This creates space for authentic self-expression and personal growth. At its core, the freedom to choose is about empowerment. It's about building a life that aligns with your values, pursuing what excites you, and learning from the journey along the way. Living alone doesn't just give you space to make choices, it gives you the courage to stand by them. Every step, every misstep, and every triumph becomes part of a story you're writing on your terms, a story of independence, strength, and self-direction. Living alone is one of the most transformative experiences a person can have because it forces you to confront yourself in ways you never would if surrounded by others. In the quiet moments when there's no one else to turn to, you come face to face with your thoughts, habits, and emotions. This introspection isn't always easy, but it is the foundation of profound personal growth. Living alone becomes a mirror, reflecting back not only who you are, but also who you have the potential to become. Without the distractions or compromises that come with sharing your life with others, you gain the opportunity to truly understand yourself. You begin to notice patterns in your behavior, how you react to stress, how you handle setbacks, and what brings you joy. These moments of self-reflection allow you to dig deeper, uncovering the motivations and fears that drive you. Living alone creates a space where you can ask yourself honest questions. What do I want from life? What kind of person do I want to be? And because there's no one else around to answer these questions for you, you're compelled to find the answers within. This heightened self-awareness often sparks a desire for change. Once you start to recognize areas where you're holding yourself back, you naturally begin to seek ways to grow. Maybe you notice you've been avoiding challenges because of self-doubt, or you realize you've been too focused on pleasing others at the expense of your own happiness. Living alone gives you the time and freedom to address these issues head-on. You can set goals that align with your values, establish new routines, and push yourself out of your comfort zone without the influence of anyone else's expectations. Living alone also teaches resilience. When something goes wrong, there's no one else to fix it for you or offer immediate support. At first, this can feel overwhelming, but over time, it builds a deep sense of confidence. You learn to rely on yourself to solve problems independently and to find strength in your ability to handle life's challenges. Every time you overcome a hurdle, you reinforce the belief that you're capable of navigating the world on your own. This resilience doesn't just help you survive, it helps you thrive. Perhaps one of the greatest gifts of living alone is the clarity it brings. Without the noise of other people's opinions or needs, you can hear your own voice more clearly. You start to recognize what truly matters to you, what you're passionate about, and what kind of life you want to create. This clarity fuels personal growth because it allows you to make decisions that are aligned with your authentic self, rather than decisions shaped by the influence of others. In the solitude of living alone, you discover that personal growth isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about becoming more aware of who you are, accepting yourself fully, and striving to become the best version of yourself. The journey may be challenging, but the rewards, self-awareness, confidence, and inner strength are unmatched. No one likes to feel left behind. It's a gut-wrenching experience that goes deeper than just being physically alone. When someone disappears without warning or explanation, it creates a profound sense of abandonment that can haunt the person left behind long after the absence is felt. Abandonment isn't just about being left, it's about the emotional weight of being left without closure, without understanding, or without any reason to make sense of what happened. It's like being stuck in a storm with no way out, waiting for the rain to stop, but unsure if it ever will. When you vanish without saying why, you create a void. It's a silence that presses down on the person who's left behind. They don't know where they stand anymore, what they did wrong, or if they were ever truly significant to you. The hardest part is not knowing, it's the uncertainty that leaves them adrift. In the absence of explanation, they begin to fill in the gaps with their own assumptions, which can be more damaging than you might realize. They wonder if it was something they said, something they did, or even if they weren't enough to keep you in their life. That sense of abandonment makes them feel as though they're not worthy of your time or attention, and that's a dangerous feeling to carry. But abandonment doesn't just affect the immediate emotional state it lingers, it has a lasting impact. It's like a scar on their soul that can take years to heal, if it ever does. The feeling of being abandoned sticks with them, lingering in their mind, sometimes resurfacing in moments when they least expect it. They might be fine one day carrying on with life as usual, but then something triggers the memory of being left, and the feeling rushes back overwhelming and unexpected. It might not always be obvious, but it's there, like a shadow that follows them, a reminder that someone they cared about chose to walk away without so much as a word. This sense of abandonment can make people question their worth and their ability to maintain meaningful relationships. When someone leaves without explanation, it leads them to believe that they weren't worth the effort, that their presence in someone's life wasn't valued. That belief takes root and spreads, affecting their interactions with others. They may become guarded, unwilling to open up again, afraid of being hurt in the same way. The fear of abandonment can change the way they view themselves and the world around them, making it harder for them to trust, to give, or to believe in the strength of connections. And while time may dull the sting, it doesn't always erase the feeling completely. It's a part of their emotional history that shapes how they approach relationships in the future. The lingering effects of abandonment can impact their sense of safety and belonging, and it can even shape their behavior, making them more cautious or distant when it comes to forming new bonds. In the end, the feeling of abandonment is not just about the act of disappearing, it's about the emotional consequences that follow. It's about leaving someone in a place where they question their own value, where they feel disconnected and unsupported. It's a hurt that runs deeper than most people understand, and the effects of it last far longer than you might think. When you suddenly disappear without warning, it creates a wave of confusion that ripples through the people who care about you. It's as if the ground shifts beneath their feet, and they're left trying to regain their balance. The silence that follows your departure doesn't just represent your absence, it represents a puzzle they can't solve. The questions start to pile up, each one more perplexing than the last. What happened? Was there something I missed? Did I do something wrong? They can't understand why you chose to leave, and this confusion gnaws at them, making it harder to find peace. The confusion isn't just about the practical aspect of your disappearance. It's about the emotional disorientation that comes with it. People aren't always prepared for the sudden shift in dynamics that occurs when someone they trusted, someone they relied on, chooses to walk away without a word. There's no closure, no explanation, just a void that's impossible to fill. Without context, they can't piece together what went wrong or why it happened, and it leaves them stuck in an emotional limbo. They replay every moment, every conversation, trying to find a clue, a signal that they somehow missed a sign that you were about to leave, that the relationship was crumbling, that something was wrong. But without that clarity, they're left in a fog of uncertainty, and it becomes almost impossible to make sense of anything. This confusion doesn't just stay in their minds, it starts to affect their behavior. They become hyper-aware of every interaction, trying to figure out if there was something in the way they spoke, the way they acted, or something in the atmosphere that might have given you a reason to pull away. They might start to second-guess themselves, wondering if they misread the situation or overlooked something important. They ask themselves, was I too distant? Was I too needy? Did I say something that pushed them away? These questions don't come from a place of guilt or blame, but from a genuine desire to understand. They want to know if there was something they could have done differently to prevent you from leaving, to fix whatever was broken, or to restore the connection they thought they had with you. But the problem with confusion is that it doesn't leave room for resolution. When someone disappears without explanation, it creates a void that can't be filled by mere speculation. No amount of thinking or overanalyzing will bring clarity. The person left behind may try to reach out, but that only deepens the uncertainty. The lack of answers becomes its own kind of torture, and the longer the confusion lingers, the more it erodes their sense of self. They begin to wonder if they're even capable of understanding the people around them, if they're not as perceptive or intuitive as they thought. It chips away at their confidence in their relationships, and they start questioning the foundation they thought they stood on. Ultimately, confusion isn't just a passing feeling, it can be a lasting state of mind. When someone disappears without warning, the ripple effect of that confusion can linger far beyond the initial shock. It distorts perceptions, leaving the person wondering what's real, what was ever truly understood, and whether they'll ever get the clarity they need to move on. It's an emotional limbo that, without resolution, keeps them trapped in a loop of questioning, doubting, and searching for answers that may never come. When you disappear, it's not just the absence of a person that people feel, it's the loss of a part of themselves. Relationships, whether personal or professional, are built on connections, shared experiences, and emotional investments. These connections become an integral part of who people are. So when you vanish, it's like a piece of them goes with you. The hole left behind isn't just a physical emptiness, it's an emotional void that's difficult to fill. That gap represents not just your absence, but the loss of the bond, the memories, and the trust that once existed between you and them. The sense of loss is profound because it feels like something essential is missing. When you formed a meaningful connection with someone, they become a part of your emotional landscape. Your interactions, your shared moments, your understanding of each other, all of these things create a sense of belonging, a sense that there is someone in your life who understands you and is present for you. So when that presence disappears, it's as if a vital part of their world has been removed. It's a loss that feels personal, like a chapter of their life has been abruptly erased. This sense of loss isn't just about the daily interactions that have stopped. It's about the emotional bond that's been severed. Relationships are built on trust, communication, and emotional investment. When you vanish without explanation, it's not just the conversations that stop, it's the trust that's broken, the emotional investment that's left unreciprocated. They might try to move on, but the piece of them that once felt connected to you remains suspended, unable to find its way back. They may try to fill that gap with other people or activities, but nothing truly replaces the void left by your absence. It's like trying to replace a missing puzzle piece with something that doesn't quite fit. No matter how hard they try, the gap remains. The hardest part of this sense of loss is that it isn't something that can be easily repaired. Time may heal some wounds, but the emotional gap left by someone's disappearance lingers longer than people often expect. It's a silent loss, one that's not always visible to others, but felt deeply by the person who's been left behind. They might carry that sense of loss with them, affecting their relationships moving forward. It can make them more cautious, more hesitant to trust, or more guarded in their interactions with others. The loss of one connection can make it harder to believe that future relationships will have the same depth or meaning. As the loss sinks in, it may start to shape their behavior. They might withdraw, unable to form the same kind of bond they once did, afraid of experiencing the same pain again. The sense of loss changes their outlook, leaving them unsure about how to navigate future connections. But no matter how hard they try, they can't fill the gap you left behind. It remains a part of their emotional history, a reminder of the piece of themselves that went missing when you chose to disappear. That loss becomes a part of their identity, a part that takes time to understand, accept, and eventually heal, but the absence of that piece can never truly be erased. When you disappear, Those left behind are suddenly forced to face the world without the comfort of your presence. It's a vulnerability they never expected, a raw feeling that strips away their sense of security and confidence. You were once a constant in their life, a source of support, strength, and guidance. But when you leave, they find themselves standing on their own, exposed and uncertain. The absence of your presence creates a kind of emotional nakedness, leaving them to wonder if they have what it takes to navigate life without the safety net they once relied on. This vulnerability isn't just about feeling alone, it's about facing the unknown. When you were there, they felt supported, whether through your words, actions, or just your steady presence. You helped them through challenges, offered advice in tough times, and gave them a sense of security. Your presence provided a kind of emotional anchor that helped them steady themselves when life became overwhelming. But without you, they're suddenly adrift. They might wonder if they can handle the difficulties life throws at them without your steadying influence. The self-doubt creeps in, and they begin to question their own abilities to deal with the challenges that once felt manageable when you were by their side. This sense of vulnerability is amplified by the suddenness of your departure. They didn't have time to prepare for it, to process the loss, or to brace themselves for the emotional weight of your absence. It's a shock to their system, one that leaves them scrambling for balance. The world, which once felt familiar and manageable with you there, suddenly feels like a much scarier, more unpredictable place. They might start to question whether they have the strength to face what lies ahead. In the absence of your support, they're forced to rely on themselves in a way they may never have had to before. The emotional exposure they feel goes beyond just the practical aspects of life. It touches their sense of self-worth, their confidence, and their ability to trust their own instincts. Without your presence, they might begin to feel unsure of their decisions, second-guessing themselves in ways they never did when you were there to back them up. It's as if the foundation they once stood on has crumbled, leaving them to navigate uncharted waters without a compass. They might wonder if they're capable of handling the emotional weight of life without the reassurance that you once provided. This vulnerability doesn't just affect their confidence, it also affects their relationships with others. When someone disappears without explanation, it can cause people to withdraw emotionally, afraid to open up again and risk feeling exposed or vulnerable once more. They might become more guarded, unsure of whether they can trust others to fill the gap you left behind. The vulnerability they feel can lead to a sense of emotional isolation, making it harder to connect with others in the same way they once did with you. In the end, the vulnerability of those who stay behind isn't just about the absence of a person, it's about the emotional exposure that comes with losing someone they relied on. They're left to face the world on their own, questioning their own ability to navigate life without the support and strength you once offered. It's a journey they didn't expect to take, one that forces them to confront their own insecurities and fears, all while carrying the weight of your absence. Your absence creates a heavy, lingering shadow of uncertainty that makes everything feel up in the air. When you disappear without explanation, it doesn't just take away your physical presence, it takes away any sense of stability or predictability. The people left behind are left wondering when, or even if you'll ever return. This uncertainty becomes like a constant weight on their shoulders, making it difficult for them to fully engage with life or move forward. They are trapped in the unknown, unable to make peace with what is happening or to plan for what's to come. This state of not knowing is draining, both mentally and emotionally, and it keeps them in a cycle of waiting. It's not just about the gap you leave, it's about the lack of resolution, the absence of clarity. When you vanish without an explanation, they don't have a way to make sense of it. They wonder if they did something wrong, if something changed in the relationship, or if they just weren't enough. They're caught in a loop of questioning, searching for any sign or signal that could shed light on your sudden absence. They look for patterns, trying to piece together what happened, hoping for some kind of answer that will give them a sense of direction. But without answers, they're left to stew in the uncertainty, unable to move past it. This constant state of not knowing is emotionally exhausting. It eats away at their peace of mind, preventing them from fully committing to anything else. Every day they wonder if today will be the day you'll return, if they'll finally get the closure they need to move on. They wait for a sign, a message, or any kind of indication that you haven't completely disappeared from their lives. The uncertainty becomes like a cloud that follows them, hovering over every thought, every decision, making it hard for them to feel grounded. They can't plan for the future because they don't know if you'll be a part of it, and that makes everything feel fragile. It's also this sense of unpredictability that wears them down. They begin to feel like they can't rely on anything anymore. The foundation that once seemed solid is now shaky, and they can't predict what's coming next. The person they thought they could count on has become an unknown, and this uncertainty spreads into other areas of their life. They start questioning their relationships with others, unsure of whether they can trust anyone to stay or if everyone they care about will eventually disappear. The unpredictability of your absence makes them afraid to invest emotionally in anything or anyone else, as they wonder if they'll just be left again when they least expect it. The worst part about this uncertainty is that it doesn't go away quickly. Even when the absence stretches on, the feeling of not knowing when or if you'll come back remains. It creates a tension that's hard to release, a constant unease that colors their everyday. As time passes, they may start to believe that you're never coming back, but even then, the hope of your return lingers in the back of their mind, preventing them from fully accepting the reality of your absence. It's a painful cycle, one that leaves them stuck in limbo, unable to move forward, always waiting, always wondering. The uncertainty becomes a part of their emotional landscape, shaping their feelings, thoughts, and actions in ways they never expected. When you disappear without warning, it doesn't just leave a hole in the present, it casts a long shadow over the future. Those left behind begin to question everything they once knew about relationships and trust. The suddenness of your absence shakes their foundation, and it makes them wonder if the future holds more of the same. If one person could leave without explanation, could others follow the same pattern? Will they always be left behind without warning, without closure? The uncertainty you leave in your wake makes it hard for them to see beyond the immediate pain, and they find themselves questioning the viability of any future connections. The impact of your disappearance reaches far beyond just the relationship you shared. It forces them to reconsider how they approach all their relationships. They begin to wonder if they were wrong to trust in the first place. After all, if someone they cared about so deeply could leave without a word, could others do the same? The fear of abandonment becomes a powerful force, one that clouds their judgment and influences their interactions with others. It's as if they start to put up walls, protecting themselves from getting too close to anyone, just in case the same thing happens again. They question whether they'll ever be able to trust someone fully, knowing that it's always possible for someone to walk away without explanation, leaving them to pick up the pieces. The questioning of the future is also tied to a loss of security. When someone disappears from your life, you lose the sense of stability that comes with knowing they are there, whether it's a friend, a family member, or a partner. The future you once imagined now feels uncertain and unpredictable. They begin to question whether they can rely on others moving forward, or if they should always prepare for the possibility that people will leave when they least expect it. The emotional investment they once made in relationships starts to feel like a risk they aren't sure they can afford anymore. This internal conflict makes it harder for them to open up to new experiences or new people, as they are now conditioned to expect the possibility of abandonment. In addition, the trust that was once a given becomes a fragile thing. The experience of being left behind without explanation makes them hyper-aware of how vulnerable they are when they trust someone. They might become more cautious, more guarded, and more hesitant to invest emotionally in relationships moving forward. Every connection becomes a potential threat, as they wonder if they are just setting themselves up for more heartache down the road. The idea of trusting again seems daunting because they've been burned once, and the fear of going through that pain again looms large in their mind. The absence you created has not only shattered their sense of security, but also left them with a lingering fear that they may never be able to trust fully again. The question of what's next is a painful one to face. The future now feels uncertain, and the emotional scars left by your departure take time to heal. Those left behind are left grappling with the realization that moving forward is no longer as simple as it once seemed. They must learn to navigate the complexities of trust, vulnerability, and connection in a world that now feels unpredictable. And while time may help, the fear that others may follow your lead and disappear just as easily will always linger, shaping the way they approach relationships moving forward. When you disappear, there's a kind of pain that doesn't scream for attention, but quietly seeps into every corner of those left behind. It's not the kind of pain that is immediately obvious or dramatic. There's no shouting, no confrontation, no outward display of hurt. Instead, it's a silent, almost imperceptible ache that grows over time. It manifests in small, fleeting moments like the sudden recognition of an empty seat or the pause in a conversation when your absence is felt but not acknowledged. It lingers in the quiet spaces where your presence used to fill, and it's felt more in the absence of something than in the presence of pain. This silent pain isn't something that can be easily explained or understood by others. It's not something they can simply talk through or shake off. It's an emotional undercurrent that runs deeper than most realize. People can move on, but the pain is still there, quietly woven into the fabric of their daily life. It's felt in the moments when they go to share something important with you, only to remember that you're no longer there to listen. It's in the tiny, unspoken reminders of the connection you once had, and how those moments now feel like echoes from the past. It's the empty space in their heart that can't be filled by anyone else, no matter how much time passes. The silence of this pain makes it harder for them to reach out for support, as they may feel they're expected to just move on, to adapt, to forget. But this quiet pain doesn't work that way. It doesn't go away just because they try to push it aside or pretend it doesn't exist. It stays with them, lingering beneath the surface, constantly reminding them of what was lost. It's not always loud or obvious, but it's there in the way they retreat into themselves, avoiding conversations or situations that might bring up your name or the memory of you. They may even begin to carry on as though nothing has changed, but the weight of your absence is never far behind. The silence of your departure also leaves them grappling with their own emotions in isolation. With no clear explanation, there's no closure, no way to fully understand or process the hurt. It's an ache that they can't verbalize because they can't quite put their finger on what's missing. They might feel a deep sadness, but it's not the kind of sadness that can be easily shared with others. It's a kind of private grief that's difficult to articulate because the pain is not something they can point to. It's the absence of you, the loss of a part of their life that they didn't realize was so integral to their emotional well-being until it was gone. And because the pain is silent, it's easy for others to overlook. People don't always see the quiet suffering that accompanies your disappearance, as there are no outward signs to indicate that something is wrong. Those who remain are left to carry this unspoken pain in solitude, often feeling like they're walking through life with a piece of them missing, unsure of how to heal or even how to talk about it. The silence becomes a part of them, and though time may dull the sharpness of it, the pain remains a quiet, enduring ache that shapes how they move through the world, how they connect with others, and how they process the things they've lost. In conclusion, the act of disappearing, whether physically or emotionally, leaves behind an imprint that can never be erased. It's a silent, subtle, yet powerful force that impacts those who were once connected to you in ways they may never fully understand. The pain they feel is not always loud or dramatic, but it is deeply felt. It forces them to question themselves, their worth, and the future of their relationships. The absence of someone they trusted and relied on creates a sense of loss that can never truly be filled, and it makes them more vulnerable to the harsh realities of life without the comfort of knowing that you'll always be there. When you vanish, they feel the weight of uncertainty, the lingering question of whether you'll return or if they'll ever get the answers they deserve. It is this uncertainty that shakes their foundations, leaving them to wonder if all relationships are doomed to the same fate. Can they trust again? Can they invest their hearts in the future, knowing that others might disappear without warning as well? The emotional turmoil is immense, and it chips away at their ability to engage with life and others in the same way they once did. The absence you leave behind causes a deep questioning of the future, but more than that, it also highlights the vulnerability that people experience when they have to face life alone. They are forced to reckon with their own strength, to navigate a world that once seemed manageable with you by their side. But when you're gone, they must find the courage to carry on without the emotional safety net they once had. And in the midst of it all, there is a quiet, persistent pain that lingers. It's not always visible to others, but it's deeply felt by those who were once emotionally invested in you. The void you leave behind doesn't just affect their present, it shapes their ability to move forward in life, to trust, to love, and to believe in the possibility of genuine connections. In every disappearance, there is a lasting impact. The absence of a person forces others to confront their fears, their insecurities, and their own emotional vulnerabilities. They are left to piece together what was lost, questioning their place in the world and whether they can trust again. And while time may ease the pain, the imprint of that loss lingers, sometimes forever. It reshapes how they see relationships, how they engage with others, and how they approach the emotional risks that come with opening up to someone new. The consequences of disappearing extend far beyond the immediate moments of your absence. They leave a trail of questions, doubts, and emotional scars that take time to heal, and even then, some pieces of those wounds remain. Disappearing isn't just about leaving someone physically, it's about leaving them emotionally stranded, questioning their worth, their future, and their ability to trust in relationships again. In the end, it's a powerful reminder that the bonds we create are fragile and that disappearing without explanation can have lasting effects on those who care about us. So before you decide to disappear, think about what you're leaving behind. Because it's not just your physical presence they miss, it's the piece of them you took with you. When you leave, you don't just leave an empty space. You leave a mark. And it's one they'll carry with them, even if they don't say a word. So choose wisely, make your presence count. Because when you disappear, they feel it more than you'll ever know.